I hope you live. I'm checking connection. Yeah, we need to do something. We need to create a job. Somebody who can just check connection on YouTube. That would be nice. Okay. I'm checking if you guys could please let me know as well. Would highly appreciate it. Playlists. Okay. Perfect. Everything is working. Okay, so we are going to be covering something very similar to what we covered last week. Slightly more detail, and plus we're also going to go over some updates. The reason why is, I mean, there's so much stuff, um, so much stuff that is happening that I don't feel like we should be rushing with covering this stuff with you guys. So in any case, this is the version. It's a coded version now of the bridge stability. I don't think you've seen it last time. Huge kudos to Cosmos for helping with this thing. Um, Overall, though, so what we have is it's supposed to be live either this weekend or literally any day. Like everything is here. We're just finishing like final touches, final copy changes, and stuff like that. But so here on the total validator side, so you have 31 validators right now at least, of which 84 are active. So 16% not active, which is not good. Now rotation. So this needs to be changed, but right now this shows time up until the last epoch. So how much? When will the epoch end? So currently it's ending in 51 minutes, which is now where does all this information come from? Well, it's coming from the Ghost extension, which you also need to take a closer look at, um, because I think it's one of the products that is completely kind of gets zero love, zero attention. Max breach ETA, that's maximum breach ETA, right? How much time will it take currently for anybody to breach roughly? So that's about 22 minutes. That's what it says. Um, and that's how the user will be deciding whether they want to breach or not. So far, I mean, me as a user, I'll probably say, well, it's 84%. That's fine, I guess, right? 50 minutes, whatever. That's rotation. So maybe these numbers will update in 50 minutes. I'll check back if I'm not happy with something. Oh, I'm happy with this number. I'm okay with that number. 22 minutes is fine, right? Because I'll actually be able to breach my stuff within 22 minutes. So that's cool. What I'm not happy about personally is breach stability index, 76%. Now, how that index is calculated, it's sufficiently easy. So we want to make sure that the block height, again, block height, remember that is just the block number. Why is it called height? Because of the structure of the data. So block number, for example, for this validator, right, is 9,831,609. Okay. So now we're looking at the actual block height on Sepolia right now, which is 688, and here is 609. So we have about 70 to 80 block delay. Is that normal? Absolutely. That's expected. Now, of course, why is there a 70 block delay? Well, first of all, the real block is 724, as you can see, but the finalized block is 688. Okay. Now I probably need to update this because maybe let me update this really quickly as well. Hopefully it will load nicely. The data is loading. Okay. Yeah, so it is 609. Yeah, so it's 609. So we are about 70 blocks behind. And that's kind of what it's supposed to be, right? So we want to make sure that by the time that 70 blocks have passed, the 688, sorry, the 724 is going to be finalized by then, right? So there's a discrepancy always between the final block on Ethereum Sepolia versus on any chain versus when the block has actually been finalized. Now, we don't have this with Ghost because with Ghost we have deterministic finality. So 2 to 3 blocks, the blocks are finalized for good. When it comes down to Bitcoin, when it comes down to Ethereum, those are probabilistic finalities. So you're never 100% sure that the stuff is finalized. You're never 100% sure. You're 99.99999% sure, but you're never 100% sure. It's a probabilistic finality. So yes, with Bitcoin in particular, you may lose your coin. So it's a probabilistic finality. Is it a bug, a feature? Well, it's a feature, right? Like it's not a bug. But Ethereum is also having probabilistic finality. What does it mean? It means that there's a risk of double spend. So I can send a transaction. The transaction can kind of be reflected on Ethereum chain. However, it's not finalized yet. So we need to wait for a certain quantity of blocks to make sure that there's no double spend. Because what I could do, I could technically pull that transaction off as a sender on Ethereum, and now, kind of, massage the whole statistic. And if validators, approve that, then I just do the double spend. But while I did the double spend on Ethereum, we on the Ghost side already minted Ghost, right? So since we are heavily dependent, and thus we inflated everybody else, and that's a hack. So in order for that not to happen, we need to put some leeway of how many blocks we are waiting before these blocks are finalized. So that is going to happen at 70 block time for 70 blocks for Ethereum at 13 seconds per block. That's about 15 minutes, right? So the reason why that takes 23 minutes is not because we take 23 minutes, because of that 23 minutes, lion's share of that is Ethereum syncing, right, for those 70 blocks. In any case, so going back to bridge stability, how is that calculated? Well, we take the difference between this one and that one, and then we essentially divide this by 4 hours, because we want to make sure that the validators are not later than 4 hours. 4 hours is the epoch, right? So essentially we say, okay, fine, like let's assume this guy is late by 5 minutes. Okay, cool. So we take 5 minutes lateness, and the remaining, so there are 240 minutes within 4 hours. So it's so we say, okay, cool. So this guy is 235 divided by 240, right? So he's only 5 minutes behind, right? So we translate all these blocks into time, and this guy's only 5 minutes late, which is 235 out of 240, which is closer to 90%. So we calculate that ratio for every single validator, and then we multiply that by the stake, by how much Casper they have. And then we multiply this out. So we'd say, this stake times 235 minutes. This stake times 231 minutes. This guy, this validator times 230 minutes. This guy by 240 minutes, for example, right? So we just take, like, this guy's significantly delayed, right? So we take all that stuff for active validators. That's our numerator. Now, denominator is just the sum of all the stakes. And that is your number, 77%. Now, why is it 77%? Well, because 16% of validators are inactive, and they heavily impact in this number. So shall we take inactive validators? Shall we incorporate inactive validators into the fraction? The answer is, well, my personal view is absolutely, and the team's view is absolutely yes. Why? Well, because just because this guy is inactive, so like if you only look at the active validators right now, the statistics is probably going to be 100% bridge stability index. If you only look at 100 at like well, not 100%. It's probably going to be like, I calculated last time, yesterday, I think it's like 96% or so. But that's without inactive validators, without disabled validators. With the disabled validators, it's about 77 to 84%. So it changes. And the reason why we need to take inactive validators is, unfortunately, the inactive validators, like those guys, right? They are part of the consensus. So the consensus, for the consensus to go through, there has to be two things. Two things have to happen. Not either or, but both. 50% of stake must say yes, and 50% of nodes must say yes for a given bridging transaction. So imagine we have 16% of validated nodes not like saying yes because they're simply inactive. But they're still part of the consensus. So now, for the attack vector, we have another 34 validators remaining to not be active for the bridge transactions to completely not go through. So those 16% inactive validators do impact the consensus protocol. They don't impact the time, they impact the risk associated with the consensus mechanism. And because of that, we need to be very transparent and honest to the user and say, hey, it's only 77%, Wait until the end of the era. Like the big fundamental change to this number will happen at the end of the era, which I think happens in about 12 hours, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken. So about 12 hours, 12 hours and 43 minutes, therefore, right? So after this epoch is over, 3 more epochs. So after roughly 12, 13 hours. So then the new validator set will be rotated. Now, what I don't like about this structure, this UI is state of the art. It's a state of the art UI. You won't be able to find anything of this caliber on the bridging side of things because every single bridging is just an Excel spreadsheet moving stuff from one row to another row, from one cell to another cell. What I don't like is the composition of our validators because they're not checking stuff. Like these guys have been slashed long time ago. They're still part of the validator set. This guy is still part of the validator set, although he's been slashed, I think, for for a week. Every single day he's been slashed. This guy as well, right? So what I don't like is the composition of our validator. This guy's behind. Like, for fuck's sake, like, if you guys behind, like, check your validator nodes, right? Like, if you inactive, just check your validator nodes. Nobody's checking. Set and forget. This guy's set and forget. A month later, they'll probably come and say, hey, how come I was slashed? Well, thank you. In the meantime, because of these validators, the statistic is 76%, which in my opinion is how to say, it's okay, but if I'll be honest, it's fucking pathetic. It's fucking pathetic because we have 31 validators. Like, just make yourself available. Okay, it's fine to be slashed one day, second day, but it's like the week. It's every single day in a row for like a week. So we need to upgrade our validator. Our validators need to get our shit together. Start checking your stuff. And of course, the validators who are active, right? You guys are here. You guys listening, so you're probably checking your stuff. Inactive validators, I don't think even listening to the call. Although we have a bunch of articles already written for every single idea of how to check stuff. But in any case, once the money is there, good validators will come in. Once the money is there, bad validators will start being slashed because right now it's okay to be slashed for the testnet money. I'm guaranteeing this, not 99%, I'm guaranteeing this 100,000%. When a validator is slashed by $1, he will all of a sudden, by a fucking dollar, by 10 cents, he or she will all of a sudden start caring. Right now, it's funky test money. It's not real. It's money, internet money, whatever, magic internet money with testnet, so nobody cares. Mr. DK, good morning. The question is, so those guys are behind, but they still have more than 6.9 staked. Is that correct? And when they fall below 6.9, they remove from the list. Great question. So that's supposed to happen. Scorpion yesterday mentioned that that's not happening. So he mentioned that even if you drop below 6.9, you're still in the set. We need to look further into this. Maybe there's a bug. How it's supposed to be? Yes, if you are dropping below 6.9, you're no longer part of the validator set because you have less than 6.9. We need to make sure that it's a whole composition. It's not just the validator stake, but also any nominators for that specific validator. So that similar bug that we observed, 3-4 weeks ago, apparently it's right here. So we need to look into this. We'll be looking into this tonight and tomorrow, and we'll be fixing this ASAP. But even if it happens, since it's a bug, it's not supposed to happen. Meaning, you have 6.9 Casper. If you dropped below 6.9 because of slash, you are no longer a validator. You're not supposed to be added to the next. You still are validated for this session, for this era until the era is over. For the next era, you're no longer a validator. You're not supposed to be added automatically. Now, Polkadot is also adding some restriction. So they are ranking the offenses based on like the quality of offense. Like there could be more serious offenses and less serious offenses. On the more serious offenses, Polkadot actually forcefully chills you as a validator. So let's assume, these guys have been like inactive for forever, for like a week. So the suggestion, we don't have it implemented. The team doesn't like that idea. I do like this idea, where if this guy, for example, has been disabled for like 2-3 days, whatever, we forcefully chill this guy. Meaning that it cannot longer be set and forget. So even if he has above 6.9, he's still forcefully chilled. So he's slashed, forcefully chilled, and then he has to manually re-qualify himself again for becoming a validator, which is easy, like Shift V. But it's like one button. But he or she has to physically, do something in order to reactivate themselves as a validator, as opposed to now, if you have, above 6.9, you will automatically be added to the set. So those are some things that I'm thinking about. The team thinks that no, and the reason for the team is saying no is this is magic internet money. Nobody cares. Uh, the second somebody loses like 10 cents, a dollar, oh my goodness! Like all of a sudden they'll stop being real. But right now, that's so obviously this is like garbage. This is bullshit. Like it's fucked up. It's really messed up that we have 76%. Like come on, this is like unacceptable. From perspective of a user, right? So the user will now be thinking, oh, 77% says high risk. Will I be bridging? Is that high risk at 77? I think so. Because again, we need to make sure that you have to understand 16% of validators are disabled from everywhere, including bridging transactions and ghost transactions as well. How do you feel to participate in the network where 16% of validators every single fucking day are inactive? Yesterday, I think it was 20%. About 2 days ago, 3 days ago, it was 25%. How do you feel that the chain has, cannot get good validators? Like it sucks. Absolutely for a user, right? So I think as a user, of course, I'll be very cautious. I'll be very thankful that at least the data is presented. At least I know what my risks are. But I'll be very dissatisfied with the fact that like it's so low. Like will I be actually be bridging? I probably won't. It doesn't mean that I'll be using. If I absolutely need to bridge, I'll probably consider. But if it can wait, I'll be just waiting. Like I'll be checking every day, to make sure it's like 100% or so, and then I'll be bridging once that reaches that. So hopefully, I really hope that there is a bug that Scorpion mentioned yesterday, and I really hope that if that is a bug, then we'll fix it soon, and then these guys will be kicked out because their balance is probably way below 6.9 at this point. In which case, then hopefully, tomorrow or like 2 days later, we'll have like a Monday, we will have a really, really high percentage of activity here, and therefore this is also going to be very high. But in any case, it doesn't matter because we need to protect the user, and the user will be thankful for this no matter what. Like whether it's low or high, they just need to know what the risks are. When I'm currently going to any bridge right now, like Coinbase, I have no risk. I have no idea what the risk is for my funds to be frozen, completely, how to say, stolen from me by the regulators for whatever reason. I have zero idea. Here, I have a clear picture, and we have access to the GitHub, so you can check the code base, and this stuff is live. And if you validate yourself, which is quite easy, well, it's quite easy to download GhostEye on your machine, whether you validate a full node, and then you can actually check these validators for yourself in more detail. So I think from transparency perspective, we are really, really doing great of serving the user. Mr. Dedicate, just out of curiosity, he's asking, just out of curiosity, is there a way to evaluate what is it that is knocking people out? Electricity, internet, something else. What is knocking them out is the fact that they are behind on the block height. So it's not electricity. It's just their negligence, literally, and nothing else. So they probably have multiple nodes in one location, or close to each other, or maybe they're using public RPC endpoints, private RPC endpoints, which are not synced. Like this one, most likely is a private RPC endpoint, which is just not synced. So those issues are easily preventable. Like, okay, if you have one node, easily preventable. If you have cluster, yes, then we have then we have a potential, then we have a situation with, running a private RPC endpoint, making sure it's all good. So for clusters, it's definitely an issue. But when it comes down to one node, this is purely negligence, nothing else. One node, if you are in a good location, kind of more or less friendly jurisdiction, you should be fine. We had some issues with one validator. I shall not be naming names. With one validator who is using most likely Proxmax, and that is the stuff that is giving problems. So it's essentially the virtual machine tool that fucks things up, right? And the reason why it fucks things up, again, we are studying kind of like if you are using a virtual machine, the traditional one, no problem. But if you're using Proxmax, I think what's happening is the kind of the flow of data, of request of data for the block heights is not being finalized because the Proxmax is prioritizing allocating CPU for anything else except for running a node. So therefore, additional priorities must be set on the back end in the settings. And this one person in particular had issues. His stuff was syncing, but he was like syncing and then desyncing, syncing, desyncing, syncing, desyncing. It was creating like lots of flows, which we had to protect against, which we did in the most recent 4 plus upgrade a couple of days ago to prevent against DOS, essentially DOS attack. But how to say, like if you are, but again, that person is trying to experiment. This person is an advanced kind of computer geek, and if you are a normal person, you will not have these issues. Okay, like if you are a normal average person with one node, you shouldn't have any of these issues. Like again, one node is totally massively permissionless, massively low specs, easy machine to run, easy RPCs, everything easy. Of course, if you are a nerd, you'll have issues because you're experimenting. If you are having a cluster, you'll probably have an issue as well, and that requires additional attention. So for clusters, for sure, that could be a problem. But nothing is how to say, unfixable. For example, we're trying to run a cluster ourselves very, very slowly. And of course, the first thing that we're trying to get into is the private RPC endpoint. We're realizing a couple of things, that Ethereum is a piece of shit as well, which we didn't know, because you cannot really prune data points. The ledger, you have to run the entire ledger, which takes 250 gigabytes. We cannot prune it as we thought we could. Meaning cut it down and only like say sync the last week or last month of data or last day of data, because we only need like one. Realistically, we only need last 4 hours of data. But no, it forces us to download the entire ledger. I don't think there's a way out of it. And that's one. Secondly, if you buy in a very powerful machine to do this, it will cost you electricity, which we also didn't realize. Now again, we're not talking about billions of dollars, but it's something. So chances are that in some parts of, say, United States, you'll probably be paying, again, depending on the machine, depending on your adapters, depending on on the cost, depending on the state. But it's not unheard of to be paying maybe $100 a month for electricity. Again, this number is pretty scary. But that machine that we acquired, for example, is a pretty heavy machine. It can run lots and lots of nodes. It's like super powerful. It's a server. So it's not like a computer. It's like an industrial server, with a very unoptimal spend on electricity, and that will probably cost us $50 to $100 a month. Now, if you buy just taking an old machine or or having a mini PC or something, your electricity consumption, of course, will be much less, like I don't know, $5, $2, $3, whatever. But we just we experimenting because we would like to run many nodes, and of course that costs apparently that costs a lot. Well, $50 to $100 for electricity just for one fucking server. I mean, obviously that's that's a lot because it's every single month. In any case, now here, so that's the address, right? So now here, that's how much Casper you will have. So I have 0, 1, but I'm not connected properly. Now the gatekeeper address, so that's where you can check your smart contract, to make sure the transaction actually went through. Bridging fee 6.9. It's a fixed fee right now, but it won't be a fixed fee. It will be changing. And now you will get is telling you how much you will get post fact. So I think let me put like 10. Yeah. So 10 Casper. So I'll be getting 9.31. So we finally have that added. Why didn't we have this before? No idea. I think that was actually Cosmos' idea. So great idea. 6.9% is how much fee you pay. And now we stole this concept of route or root. So this is, it's a little blurry, but this is Casper on Ethereum versus Casper on the Ghost chain. And this is the route so far. So now, of course, this route will be extended as we can be adding more tokens and stuff like that. So if you, for example, want to do, like Chainlink, for example, like you'll do link to Ethereum, Ethereum to Casper, and then Casper to Casper. So we would like to extend the entire route to visualize it for the user what exactly they're going to be doing. So that's the point of this. We call it ticket panel. Now this one is validator panel. So with with the updates, and then this one is the top panel overall. Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize. Okay, so let me see if the sound is back. Test. Yes, we see it. Mr. Adiki asked the question. So, given uh, your experiments, do you think a mini PC with that much memory can work as an RPC? Let me not give you any false promises. The best way will be to, that's a great question. The best way, Mr. Adiki, will be to please ask this question in Wales, and somebody will get back to you. So, the only thing on the RPC endpoint, so RPCs depend heavily on the chain. So, we are realizing that even Ethereum is like very, very intensive on memory. So the storage has to be 200 250 gigs, which is insane. And we have about 3 or 4 people that I know who are already playing with RPCs on the back end. So better to ask this question in the general group in Wales, and that's where you'll get the most answers. Short answer, for Ethereum, for one chain, it could work, but do not order the machine yet. Like, check all the specs. Like, be very persistent with these questions. But when it comes down to, let's assume, maintaining a couple of chains, like Pulse chain, let's assume an Ethereum Classic and an Ethereum, I mean, that's going to be a problem. Okay, that's probably going to be a problem because with one mini PC. Now, of course, like, okay, so are we permissionless or not? For one node, absolutely. For one node can manage everything because it's not even going to be running its own RPCs. If you have a cluster, that's where you run into issues. And yes, that's where you need to kind of be slightly less permissionless, more permissioned, right? Because the machine has to be bigger. It's going to be probably a separate machine from consumption perspective, but also from electricity, from requirement perspective, but also from consumption perspective of electricity, which may be pretty heavy. Pretty heavy. So is it a good thing or bad thing? As we discussed prior, I think that's a great thing because we will be finally helping the infrastructure. Now, the recent upgrade from Ethereum, it seems like it's minimizing some of those requirements, but I'm not sure exactly. So we need to look further into this. But overall, listen, like if we all got to start running RPC endpoints, like that's great because the idea was never to have Infura or Alchemy run one RPC endpoint for our MetaMask. That's bullshit. We are all supposed to have our own RPCs. Like, it's not safe to transact on Ethereum without your RPC. Like, we say, oh, screw it, let's just do MetaMask because MetaMask will not screw us over. But MetaMask is using data from Infura, which is a centralized provider of RPC signals. The Web3 system was never intended to use products like MetaMask. Like, you're supposed to be self-sufficient. That's the whole point. And we're learning it the hard way right now. We think, it's probably very unusable to run RPCs. No. That's just going back to the roots of how it's supposed to be. Same thing with Bitcoin. That's going back to the roots of how it is supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to operate with to work with a given chain without having the infrastructure developed for yourself. Okay, so that's a great thing. And A, we go into the roots. B, we are expanding this infrastructure locally, like on a decentralized fashion, which is great for Ethereum. It's great for Ethereum Classic, great for Pulse, great for any chain that will be doing this as a set of independent validators. So I think that's a great thing. It's not convenient, but here's the thing. Getting to 1 billion market cap, and disclaimer, I'm not saying we will. Getting to 10 billion market cap, there's disclaimer, we're not saying, it's a risk. Getting to 1 trillion market capitalization, it's not going to be fucking convenient. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, like I'm doing this thing part time, and I just become a billionaire. Well, no, it doesn't work like this. Now, of course, you can say, well, some Bitcoin holders or Ethereum holders or Solana, holders bought at the infancy and then, kind of didn't do much and kind of the space just took off themselves. And that's true for those passive holders. But I'll tell you, like, for example, for Bitcoin in particular, my personal contacts, I'm not going to name names. My goodness, they spent so many Bitcoins. They sold them at like $10, $20 to pay for renting a place next to financial institutions to attract those financial players initially as decentralized players, as owners. The famous 20,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. Same thing. Like, they spend so many Bitcoins to promote this one was one project, one guy who was giving out 5 Bitcoins every single time you go through CAPTCHA, which is $500,000 right now. Go through CAPTCHA, 5 Bitcoins. You go do the CAPTCHA again, another 5 Bitcoins. You do another CAPTCHA, another 5 Bitcoins. Like it was just unlimited. It was like magic internet money with no price discovery. So yes, those people who didn't do much, they got lucky. That's a lottery. That's like winning a lottery. But many other members of the Bitcoin community, Ethereum community, my goodness, they spend so much time, effort, money, opportunity cost to promote the product. And that's exactly what we have to be doing. It's not convenient. Okay. If you rely on, those of you who've been watching, if you rely on just, buy and hold and then, buy low, sell high, I mean, sure, that's absolutely a strategy, but that's putting your destiny in the hands of others who will be promoting this product for you. And if that's what you want to do, no problem. But there are probably better ways of spending money. The best way I know is go to Las Vegas. At least you'll have some girls around you. When you gamble, you can make money too, right? Now here it's going to be like a sweaty palm typing fucking ghost eye in your terminal trying to make this shit work. Like it's not very fun, right? Compared to Las Vegas. So pick your battles. In any case, I would like to share this one thing here. So we got thanks to Cosmos actually, we got featured on Ghost Faucet. We featured the Ghost Faucet on Ethereum Classic. It took us about, I would say, 2 months. So they approved the commit about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. They finally added us to the user interface. So now we have 2 products with Ethereum Classic. First one is obviously Ghost NFT right here. Second one, which was deployed on the Ethereum Classic mainnet. Now this one is a faucet, which is deployed on the Ethereum Classic testnet mortar. So we have these 2. Huge kudos to Avalon, huge kudos to Stark, and huge kudos to Cosmos for helping fund this faucet. It would not be here without you guys. Again, Avalon, thank you so much. Stark, thank you so much. And Cosmos, thank you guys so much for minting mortar and sending it over to the faucet. We increased the minimum drop from 0.1 ETC to 5 ETC. And it's all possible thanks to you guys. And we have essentially the best faucet on Ethereum Classic right now, which is quite good for a community with 5,000-6,000 nodes. Ethereum Classic has 5,000-6,000 nodes, so that's a great achievement. It took us some time. One thing that I would like to add to this, so this is not final, but it's still state of the art, and I would like to make it even better. We're going to be discussing this tomorrow. What I would like to do, I would like to give as much transparency as possible, give as much trustworthiness, create as much trustworthiness from the user as possible by really kind of doubling down on this. And I'm thinking of like somehow adding telemetry, maybe not today, maybe not this year, but at some point in time. So at the very least, what we'll do is we'll add the link to the telemetry, most likely, still to be discussed with the team, but I really love this idea. So you have the list of validators, and then you have the map of these validators, so you can check what are they running, so it's all real. So that'll be nice. And down the road, maybe I'm thinking of like even adding the map itself. Like instead of this table, maybe have the map, and then similar to the Ghost telemetry, like you have a map here, and then when you press on the table, with info like such as I think this is an Audi key, and then your location, and then whether you are full node or validator node. Team added those tooltips about a couple of weeks ago. Then you have how many peers they see, and then we'll add additional stuff. What's the block height of Ethereum? What's the block height on Sepolia? On Mortar? What's the block height on Pulse? And so on and so forth. So that is kind of my vision down the road. It's a crazy thought that I got yesterday. Typically, when I have these thoughts, the team persuades me otherwise. Maybe 9 out of 10, my ideas are total shit. But 1 out of 10 they like, and I hope that that's one of the ideas they like. Now, the implementation from the map, I mean, listen, it's going to be very difficult. We need to make sure it's fast. It loads fast for the user. The priority is transparency, but still kind of good usability. So the map may take some time to load, but we're going to be discussing maybe we can do some iframe, etc., and kind of just copy the side frame and insert it right there. So again, I'm not sure how. Like maybe we can do a map below this. So so far this is just ideas, but at the very least, what I would like to do is at least add the map to the add the link to the telemetry for people to see. So that's this. If you have any questions, please let us know. This will be live very soon. We're finishing last touches to this user interface. As you know, by the way, as you maybe noticed, some of you finally reallocated those menus in the proper logical order. So faucet goes first, then bond, then dex, then stake, then bridge. So it has, was a tiny change, but still the team did it. So that's great. We'll be adding to the ecosystem some additional products, or maybe optimizing this ecosystem somehow. So overall, lots of changes. We're not announcing all of them, but trust me, lots of changes. Okay, so now the other thing that I would like to kind of go back to is slashing. We have 10 more minutes of slashing. So not much changed. So the Grandpa Slash, please rewatch the video from last week. So Grandpa Slash is the same for Finality Gadget. So same. Babe Slash is the same formula. But we came to, so we had these formulas for the slow collapse slash, which we had to come up with. This we took originally from Polkadot. It was one of the legacy formulas, and they're not using it anymore. But we essentially kind of, after seeing how irresponsible some of the validators are, the problem with this slash was that this slash is limited to 7%. So at most, it can be slashed at 7%. And if you are screwing up the bridging for everybody else, for all the other validators, and only getting slashed 7%, it will be, well, 7% a day. That's a lot, right? Like cumulatively, like it will be a lot. Like after 10 days, you like lost almost all of it. But it's 10 days that the user is not bridging. Those are 10 days that other validators are not earning bridging fees. That's important, right? Remember, if this is bad, the user does not produce bridging fees for the validators. So you guys not earning as validators nothing because we have no inflation on Ghost Chain, right? So any inflation is backed by the revenue one-to-one. So meaning there's no like inflation. There's no unsubstantiated inflation, meaning no bridging fees, no gains. So we thought of making this a lot more aggressive, and we spent a lot of time ideating this week. And chances are we're going to proceed with this formula. It's already coded. It's already integrated in the recent forkless upgrade. And I want to demonstrate you how these formulas look like roughly, like how they translate into charts. Now for the offense, for the applause offense, which is another offense, which is essentially kind of where you have a validator who's not who's not seeing all the collapse, who's not seeing all the bridging transactions, or conversely trying to plug in fake bridging transactions. So that was the formula, and that's a correct formula. But the right way to rewrite this formula, because it is really this, right? So it's kind of looks complicated, but that's the right way of how to rewrite this thing. This thing is just kind of isolated to one clap. But if we are extrapolating to all the claps in that given era, that's the right formula, and that's what we're going to be kind of discussing later on. Not today, but later on. So I would like to maybe for the rest of the call, we have 9 minutes to go over how these functions look like, give you more ideas about the slashing. I know that we wanted to go over rewards today, but let's just finish slashing first. So let me open up Excel. Okay, so I was thinking of like, should I just put the charts or should I actually go through kind of, more details? And I decided to go through more details here. So that's important. So Grandpa and Babe Slash, Grandpa, right? So that's Grandpa, right? So, and Babe Slash, that's the chart. So notice how the most important thing to notice here is we're talking about 100 validators. So we have 100 validators. If one third of validators is inactive, the protocol stops. And that's an attack. An attack vector is not to capture 50%, but to capture 1/3. Now, you're not going to be able to do anything, but you will be able to stop. So 1/3, that's a BFT, exists with many chains, including Solana, actually. It does not exist with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is 51% attack and, attack vector, and so is Ethereum. But when it comes down to us, Polkadot, and also Solana, I'm pretty sure Cosmos, we use BFT, which is 2/3 n plus 1 validators. Thus, the attack vector is 2/3 plus n, 2/3 n plus 1. So if 66% of validators, 67% of validators take over, they can essentially screw the chain. So therefore, it's a lot more difficult to take over, Ghost than to take over Bitcoin, for example. It's a lot more difficult to take over Solana than to take over Bitcoin from that perspective, sure. But it also creates a negative side of things, which is 1/3, therefore, can just stall the chain for some time until the end of the era. So 1/3 of validators, if they are inactive, for example, they will definitely be slashed, trust me. But they will be stalling the operations on the chain. Chain is not operable. So as you can see, if you have 100 validators as our base, 33%, 34% is about 34. And check this out. What happens to Grandpa? That's from Polkadot. So if 34% of validators are inactive, the chain is stalled completely. However, they are slashed 100%. So 100% of the stake is gone. Okay, that's how the Grandpa works. Pretty aggressive. And we were thinking about okay, so for the slow clap, remember it was 7% last week. And I just got really fired up about how, why would validators be so negligent, right? Because again, guys, who run nodes, thank you so much, I love you, but time to step up. I need to pay you bridging fees, right? We need to make sure there are bridging fees. How can we ensure that? Well, by marketing, promotion, etc., but also by having really good statistic on the side of the bridge. I can pat your back and say, hey, thank goodness you guys are running the node, but if it's 70% bridge index, right? Users won't bridge. So I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing good to anybody by not raising this issue. Conversely, if I'm raising this issue, hopefully some of you listen and help us upgrade it. But I got really fired up about this 7%. 7%, oh my goodness, takes 10 days. 10 days that validators, honest validators, don't earn fees. So we decided to redesign the slash, and that's how it looks like. But there's an important clarification. So it's a lot easier to get slashed on the side of slow clap because you need to be present over the course of 4 hours, as we discussed last week, but you also need to be present every 10 minutes, which is pretty fucking demanding. Let's assume your electricity turned off, not your fault, for more than 10 minutes. You screwed. You slashed. So that's a very demanding feature. So the function that we had here before was for the first 10% of validators that don't get slashed. If cumulatively 10% or less of validators are having an offensive slow clap, but then it goes up to 7%. So what we did here, we wanted to emulate something close. We wanted to say, hey, if the top 10, the first 10 validators here will not get slashed, and then after that they will start getting slashed. But the formula just didn't really work out well because there's some rounding and stuff. So we just had to make a hard decision to change 10% to 9%. It was not because we wanted to make it more stringent. It was just to make formulas round stuff better. Because with different rounding, it was 30/7. It was just not dividing right. 30/7 is roughly 4, so we just did 4. But then we replaced that number with the 4. But then we had to replace the other number with, instead of 10, 9 to compensate for this rounding down from 30/7 down to 4. So kind of apologize for this because what it says, this thing is the first 9% of validators, 9% of validators is a lot. It's okay. So if 9% of validators are offline in a given era, they don't get slashed. They just get disabled. No slash. But then it goes really, really rapidly to 100%. So check out how from 10% to 34%, the slash goes from 0.2% to 100% slash. Everybody gets slashed. So essentially, it's a combination of the legacy formula from Polkadot and the Babe slashing. So that's this formula. Brand new, nothing crazy here, nothing complicated, but just wanted to emphasize that we are experimenting with something very aggressive. So for example, today, let me go back and see. So today we have 16% of validators, right, inactive. 60% of validators is here, so they'll all be slashed 7.8%. Not a lot. To be honest, not a lot. Yesterday we had 20% of validators inactive, so they got slashed about 20%, and then the day before we had about 24% of validators inactive, they got slashed 36%. So that was one change. Another change that is already implemented with forkless upgrade is, since validators are not earning any bridging fees, or the bridging fees are minimized because the bridge index is, sucks, is low. The idea is to whom do these slashing rewards go to? So typically the slashing would just go to the treasury, controlled by the Ghost Cult, which is Ghost Council, Ghost Whales, and Ghost Community. But the idea here was to use the reward curve, which we'll hopefully start covering next week. Based on the reward curve, the slashing essentially go back to validators. So it's going to be a split between validators and treasury, and the validators will get compensation for the inactive validator. So I'm an active validator, Mr. K. Let's assume you are inactive. You get slashed, your stuff goes to me. Part of your stuff goes to me, part of your slash goes to the treasury. At least that's my compensation for your inability to make sure the node is good. Okay, so I'm losing bridging fees, but at least I get compensated. So that was like a King Solomon type of decision. Polkadot didn't have it, but had something similar. At least from what we've read, they did something similar where 80% of the slash would go to the treasury and 20% of the slash would go to the validators. Our split will be proportional to the curve, to the reward curve, which we'll hopefully cover next week if you have nothing more pressing to cover. Then we have another slash for missed claps. So this is based on 100 validators, 10%, 10 cast per stake, well, not important here, and 100 applauses, so 100 bridging transactions that have been approved by the majority of the nodes. So here, let's assume one validator skips 13 claps. 1 out of 100 skips 13 claps. Okay, he will be flashed 13%. If just one validator skips 27 claps out of 100, so 27%, he'll be slashed 27%, right? So it's a pretty linear function. Of course, it gets more complicated when there's more than one offender, like if it's 2 offenders, etc. But it's difficult to graph it. So this is just an idea. Again, the specific scenario is 1 offender out of 100, and there are 100 claps, 100 bridging transactions. So if I miss this number of bridging transactions on like the column that I just highlighted, what's going to be my slash? The slash is here. Now, a more aggressive slashing happens when you are, as a validator, proposing fake claps. So it's the same exact formula than here. It's exactly the same formula that I showed this very complex one, right? Remember I just showed it like 5 minutes ago. So if anything, just go 5-7 minutes back and pause it to see. So when you are offering fake claps, the offense is much more. So for example, let's assume we have 100 validators, 100 applauses. I'm one offender and I'm proposing 1 clap, extra fake. I'll be slashed 99%. 99%. That's like equivalent of double spend, because I'm like I do it purposefully. That's again to prevent any hacks, right? Now, if I'm proposing 2 claps or more, if I'm 1 offender, I'll be slashed 100%. Now, the situation gets a lot better, but not much, but still a lot better if there are more offenders. For example, if there are 33 offenders out of 100, so we have 100 validators, honest validators, 33 offenders come in. If they only propose 1 clap, it will not be the clap will not be accepted, the fake clap, but they'll be all slashed by 2%. Now, if those 33 offenders suggest 10 fake claps, they'll be slashed 20%. Then they have to suggest 50 claps to be slashed 100%. Now, these claps will not be accepted. They're fake claps. They're fake bridging transactions. They will not go through. It's all a hack. But as there are more offenders, the slash goes down. And the logic for that is, if there are more offenders, maybe something is wrong with the majority, right? So if there's just 1 offender, clearly it's an offender. But if more people are thinking that there are some fake claps, maybe there are real claps. So we need to kind of pro rata for that too. That was a lot of information to unpack. Again, we're working day and night. Very exciting stuff. Bridging, state of the art. Whenever it's out, check it out. Bridge stuff. Give us your feedback as a user. It will be nice to hear that feedback. And we are, once the bridging is done, sometime midweek with all the final changes. Like we'll launch it and there'll be additional final changes. But I think first deployment, then additional deployments will be done by Wednesday. We're then going to be going to Ghost Eye, Ghost Light, and Ghost Extension, and also kind of rudimentary going through the details, going through little nuances here and there, trying to make things better. So we're getting on the product side of things a lot more stringent to make sure that you guys know what's happening. And of course, we have there are lots of guides, 3 guides that are pending. They'll be working later today on. First guide is going to be about consensus mechanism on the side of Ghost Chain and on the side of Ghost Bridge. Second guide is slashing, so those charts will go to that guide and maybe table with data too. And third is rewards. So consensus, slashing, and rewards. Rewards on the side of Ghost Chain and also on the side of bridging. And it's either going to be 3 independent guides or 1 guide integrated somewhere, or just pieces, like bits and pieces integrated into the existing guides. Most likely the latter. But in any case, it will give you a lot more information because we want to make sure that you guys are as educated as possible. Now, why are we coming up with guides so late? Well, because things are getting finalized just now. And once they're finalized, we want to kind of don't delay the guide and give it to you guys ASAP. Thank you so much for your attention. See you guys next week. Have a good one.